Hey, Notre Dame had a really good group of players on campus late last week. Name drop a little bit. Who stood out to you?
Yeah, so the first what 3 weekends you got June 3rd. It's June 3rd. Yeah, June 3rd, June 10th, June 17th. Those were all Fridays. Official visits, that Irish invasion camp which I've mentioned a few times was that first weekend. So it was a lot focus on the 2023 class. Elijah Page, an offensive tackle, recruit committed to Notre Dame following his first weekend of June official visit. So that was kind of focus. Well, after the June 17th weekend, focus for visits shifted towards the 2024. They didn't bring in any more official visitors. So you had four actually big time unofficial visitors for this 2024 class. So they paid their own way to get up to campus. Sammy Brown, number 12 overall player, and number 2 linebacker per the 2024 On3 consensus from Jefferson, Georgia. That's just outside of Athens. I think it's about a half hour. So Notre Dame battling those SEC powers for Sammy Brown. We have stories up on all these guys at blueandgold.com as well. Ryan Wingo, the number 4 overall player in the country, number 1 wide receiver. That's a 5-star recruit from St. Louis University High School. Those from St. Louis who are Notre Dame fans, you know how big time of a school this is for Notre Dame to be involved at. So Notre Dame had this 5-star recruit on campus. And then another kind of profile school for Notre Dame, St. Joseph's Prep in Philadelphia, number 154 player nationally, number 20 cornerback is Emilio Agard. So all 3 of these players again in the 2024 class. Irish had Brown and Wingo on campus Thursday. Agard was on campus Friday. Notre Dame quarterback commit CJ Carr in the 2024 class showed up to campus Thursday and hung out with Brown and Wingo, got dinner with them. Carr, I mean, so my first recruiting class covered Notre Dame's 2020. I would say that the kind of the recruiter of the class among the commits was Drew Pine. Drew Pine did a really nice job. 2021, of course, Blake Fisher, a little bit more aggressive. In 2022, I think it was a mix of some guys. Probably say Steve Angeli was the main recruiter among the commits. 2023, you got Drake Bowen, the linebacker from Maryville just outside Chicago, and then you have obviously Carr for 24. And from what I've seen from Carr, just the first couple weeks, he might be the best one I've seen. I mean, just very active, very bought into Notre Dame. There's no, you know, I don't want to be that guy on social media that's tweeting at our recruits, and he's doing a really good job with it. Whether it's publicly or privately, he's recruiting kids in the 23 class, 24 class, offense, defense, does not matter. Once Notre Dame really gets started on the 2025 class, I bet CJ is going to be recruiting those kids too. So he's doing a really nice job, Darin.
Mike, let's discuss the near future for Notre Dame football recruiting. Over the next week, is there a really good chance that Notre Dame could add 4, 5 more players to their recruiting classes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cam Williams, a big time 2024 wide receiver who we talked about earlier in the show. I like him to choose Notre Dame Wednesday night. Thursday morning looks like Notre Dame could get good news from Charles Jagasaw from Rock Island, Illinois. Looks like the Irish have a good shot of beating out Michigan. Friday is Micah Bell, 4-star cornerback from the Houston area. I think it's 6 Eastern time. Micah Bell's announcing his decision. Saturday looks like it might be a day off. And again, I think Notre Dame gets Micah Bell. I've got predictions in for, I think, all 5 of these kids to land at Notre Dame who I'm about to talk about. You had Williams, Jagasaw, Bell. Fourth one, Rico Flores, July 3rd, 4-star receiver from California. I like Notre Dame there. He has the top 3 of Notre Dame, Georgia, and Ohio State. And he was scheduled to take 3 official visits in June, and he only ended up making it to Notre Dame. The Georgia and Ohio State trips got canceled. That's kind of telling, in my opinion. We'll see. And Independence Day, Christian Gray, a very impressive cornerback prospect from St. Louis, who Notre Dame's been recruiting for over a year now. And if I had $1 for every time I've mentioned his name on your show, Darin, I would be rich at this point. He is announcing between Notre Dame, LSU, USC and Ohio State. I've liked the Irish for him since I think when we were at Rivals, I put in a pick last November for him to go to Notre Dame. So they could go 5 for 5. All highly ranked prospects. I mean, Charles Jagsaw is the number 1 tackle in the country. Just a cherry on top of an already impressive offensive line class potentially. Yeah, it's sunshines and rainbows right now for Notre Dame on the recruiting trail. Everything. I mean, even though you have Dante Moore's recruitment, that's the one we've been following for so long and kept such a close eye on. That one's trending away from Notre Dame. Looks like he's going to end up at Oregon, which, Darin, we can dedicate a whole show to that one at a later date. But even with that, it's still Notre Dame's in such a good place recruiting.
Incredible. It feels like you're the expert. I'm the dummy, so I might be just overanalyzing things. But is Notre Dame just farther along in everything they're doing this year compared to previous years? It feels like they got the offers out on time, or sooner maybe I should say, and they've been aggressive going after the players they wanted. We've documented they're not afraid to go into a big powerhouse's backyard and get a player. Are things a little different right now compared to last year in terms of pacing of recruiting and getting the offers out and getting the commitments?
Yeah, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. I mean, I think is Marcus Freeman recruiting better than Brian Kelly era? Like, I think the easy answer is just say yes right now, and again, kind of just live in the moment and say that. We would need a few years to really answer that question. But in terms of what you're asking, like what I'm seeing, there's definitely more of an energy. Someone like, this is the first recruit that popped in my head, Kane Barong, a tight end at Notre Dame, signed with the Irish in the 2021 class. His really only contact at Notre Dame was Chip Long. That's the only, like when he commits to Notre Dame, Kane Barong did, Chip Long. I mean, that's the only guy who's recruiting him. I think he talked to Brian Kelly once during his process, and it's just Chip Long. And, again, Chip was the offensive coordinator and tight ends coach, but still, like, there's just one coach that was. So when Chip Long leaves, Kane's like, I got no one here. Like, I don't know anyone. Now, it's for every recruit, it's a 4-pronged attack, pretty much. I mean, you got Marcus Freeman's involved with every single recruit they're after. Chad Bowden's involved with every single recruit they're after. You got the coordinator and the position coach. That's 4 minimum. So it's definitely more well-oiled machine. And Darin, I mean, what I'm about to say, I was saying when Freeman got hired. Look, I mean, there's when your head coach is recruiting hard, that trickles down to the rest of your staff, and they are going to recruit hard too. When Brian Kelly is not an active recruiter, that's going to trickle down in a negative way to the staff. Like, I'm not really going to recruit this week. No one's going to notice. Brian Kelly don't care. That's at least my kind of read on it. I don't know if that would actually happen, but yeah. when and this is in college football or any field, like if your boss is not showing a good example of being a daily active recruiter in this, then why should anyone else on the staff be? So so long way to say Freeman's killing it, and he's not going to accept Deland McCullough or Chancey Stucker or any of the coaches to slack off because your boss is doing it. You better do it too.
You got time for one more question?
Of course.
Since you mentioned Dante Moore, and we've talked about CJ Carr being in the 24 class, and I asked you recently any chance he would reclassify, and you didn't close the door on it. I was wondering, has there been any change in that conversation? And if not, do you believe Notre Dame is still in pursuit of a 23 quarterback? Are there a couple of quarterbacks that they might be looking at? How would you define to Notre Dame fans right now as Notre Dame re-examines the 23 class for quarterbacks?
Re-examines is a really good word, Darin, because I do believe that's exactly what's going on right now. So much talk about CJ Carr potentially reclassifying to 2023. I'm told it's still on the table, still an option. But my message to Notre Dame fans is I would expect for it not to happen And if it does, take that as a nice, pleasant surprise. Again, still on the table, but right now not expected to happen. As far as what they would do next to 2023, to my knowledge, Notre Dame has not made a move on that yet. There are so many options. You can go offer someone out there, maybe someone who's under the radar, whether that's someone you like now or you wait till you see some 3 or 4 games of senior film. You can try to flip a quarterback committed elsewhere. You can skip the position and get a transfer and go get 2 in 2024. You can get some, under the radar talent and still get a transfer. I mean, do you wait to see what you have on the roster this fall? There's just so many options for Notre Dame. And what I go back to is, listen, Irish fans, as much as it sucks that Dante Moore, again, it does not look like Notre Dame's going to land him. And it's like, oh, here we go again. Where are we going to do a quarterback? I've seen this before. You have CJ Carr committed. And that is huge because even though if he stays in 2024, you're not going to get him for a couple years. You will get him eventually, and he is as good as they come. I think he's a 5-star talent. So you definitely sleep a little bit easier knowing that you have CJ Carr. But if you're having problems sleeping over Notre Dame football recruiting, then you got a lot more problems than that.